Hey everyone, my name is Sean Murphy, and I want to start this video with something that's very personal. I have a terminally ill child, and over the last few years, I've looked at every complementary and alternative therapy I could find to try to help him. And almost every one of these options that I've brought forward has been shut down by either his mom and or his doctors. So I turned to the only option remaining: energy medicine, frequency, sound and light therapies. And that path led me back to a point in my past, to Dr. Sandra Rose Michael and the Energy Enhancement System, the EESystem. Someone I've known, this Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, for over 15 years, and I really respect her. I became an EESystem Cube owner, and what happened next was nothing short of a miracle. And I described the full story of what happened after I got my Cube in detail in my soon-to-be released book. After that experience, I started researching other sound and light frequency therapies. And that's how I first learned about this guy named Jason Shurka and the light system, otherwise called TLS. I decided to check out the TLS pyramid and the TLS cube hardware myself so I could review it and compare it to the EESystem cube that I own. So today, I'm going to do a hands-on review right here on camera, plus a direct side-by-side comparison with the EESystem cube, the TLS cube, and the TLS light system. We'll look at the actual hardware, their costs, and how they function. We will literally look inside the box. So let's first begin by talking about the pyramid hardware over here. It uses an LED panel and moving light patterns. And we also have the TLS cube. It's a smaller unit and operates with smaller LED light patterns and LED panels. Users report various experiences. These are wellness devices, everyone. They're not, quote, medical devices or medical equipment. And just remember with these, always consult your doctor. They are sold at premium prices. These devices that we're looking at today do cost a pretty penny. So to get a clear picture how these devices actually perform on a basic health test, I'm going to test them today with a tri-field meter right here, which is an EMF detection device. This meter is available on Amazon for around $200. You can pick yourself up one too. Okay, first, let's look at the EESystem cube for direct comparison. Come on, let's check it out. Okay, everyone, here we have our tri-field meter set up. We have standardized the distance from it, from the EESystem in this case to the tri-field meter, and we're going to go through each setting and test the electromagnetic frequencies. Our first test is going to be with standard magnetic. Here we go. Okay, and it is reading 0.1. We're going to put that over on the whiteboard. I know you can't see it, but we're going to record all of these and then compare. Now we're going to move on to standard electric. Okay, and that one is reading between 3 and 4. Let's see if it stabilizes. All right, we're going to put that as 3. Now let's move on to weighted magnetic. Okay, that one is holding strong at 0.3. Let's continue our data collection. We're going on to a weighted electric. That's also moving between, oh, there it is at 4. Okay, and our last test for the EESystem, the RF test. And let's see what that comes out at. It's stabilizing. It's bouncing around still. Looks like it's still bouncing. Moving between 190 and 200. All right, I keep seeing it flash there. 183, 185, 175, I think 190. Looks to be a pretty good average. All right, next everyone, let's look at the light system or the TLS pyramid. Let's check it out. Okay everyone, we now have the TLS or the light system pyramid. We have the tri-field EMF detector ready, and let us just first go over the reason we have it set up like this is because the human body getting close to the tri-field meter has been known to affect it. So this is why we have this approach. So with that said, let's get started with the pyramid test. We're going to switch to the standard magnetic setting. Let's see what it says and jot down the reading. Okay, looks like it's settling at, it's jumping up a little bit, 1.5, 1.6. Okay, let's do the next reading. Standard electric. Stepping back. Looks like that's pretty clear. 3.9, 4.0. Got that on our board. I'm writing all these numbers down and we'll review them when we're done. Let's move on to weighted magnetic. Stepping back. That is showing, it's bouncing around. Still moving, it's kicking up there. Looks like that is settling at 11.5, 10, still moving. We'll say that that's 11 as it moves between 10 and 11. Next to the weighted electric. Let's see what our rating is there. That's right there at 42, 41. Call it 42. And lastly, we're going to move to the all-important RF detection. Oh, whoa. Okay, that's really jumping up. That is, oh, it is, just a second. Let's see if it settles. That is over 7,000, looks like, okay, 8,000 there, 7,600. It's still bouncing up a lot. Wow, look at that. It's now as the screen is moving, it's kicking up over 8,000. I've seen it move all the way between 6,000, 86. It's just moving so fast up and down there. I think it looks like it's averaging out right around 8,000 as it moves in between. Okay. Or to make it accurate with the EESystem, it's actually 8.000. Okay, wow, that's significant. I mean, look at that, it just keeps jumping up there. I mean, and we're just, that I am very surprised by how much RFs are coming off this pyramid. And I don't know, I'm gonna try to zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see how it just keeps bouncing up there. Now it's 800, 1100. Yeah, I'm just not able to even really get an accurate reading as it moves. It looks like as the screen fires up, it actually increases. That hit over 9,600. Wow. Okay, everyone, we're gonna move on. I'm pretty amazed by that. Okay, we've looked at two of the products. Now let's look at the third one, the TLS cube. Let's check it out. All right, everyone, we're on our third test. We have the TLS cube out. Everything's set up, same uniform distance from the unit. Let's begin our test with standard magnetic. Tri-field's kicking on. Oh, it really jumped up there. Looks like it's settling around 3.3. 3.4. Okay, let's move on to standard electric. That's moving between 39, 40, 38. Looks like about an average there of 39. Putting this all on the whiteboard, everyone. We'll look at it in a moment. Moving up now to weighted magnetic. Okay, that's pretty variable. I'm seeing 11s, 13s, 15. Gosh, that's really moving a lot. Between, I'd say 12, so 17, 12, 15. I'm just gonna put anywhere between 12 12 and 17 range there. All right, moving on to weighted electric. Okay, that looks a lot more steady right at 37, holding 37, 38. We'll call it 37. And then our last and key test, the RF, the radio frequency. Here we go, let's kick it onto that. Oh, whoa, that's really high. That's really high. That's over 17,000, looks like, or 16.5. Wow, okay, that's still, that is at the top end of the meter. Looks like it's almost to max out right there. 16.8, 17. It looks like it's moving right at the top end. We're gonna call it, there's 17 and a half. Call it between 17 and 18,000. Wow. All right, everyone. Because this is so high, I think what we want to do, just to give people some perspective, is let's put the tri-field meter now up next to an internet modem and compare those radio frequencies, just so we can all see exactly what this readout means, just to get an idea of what the radio frequency, because these are high. What we've seen on the TLS units are much higher than I expected, and I want to get an idea of what we're going to see from a modem that's putting out internet radio frequencies, just for comparison. So we're going to do one more test and add those to the board. All right, everyone, after those high readings on the TLS products, I want to do some comparison, one further test. We have a Wi-Fi router here that we're going to compare and go through all of them too, just to get a sense of what the readings are when compared to a device that everyone knows. Again, this is the internet signal coming out that many of us know is not good for your health to be near, sleeping next to, and sometimes even have on during the day. Okay, let's start it up. Standard magnetic. Jumping up there pretty high. Moving between, I see 10 and 20. Oh wow, it's just kind of hard to say. But that is high. That's much higher than all the other units. That looks like 10 to 12, 10 to 13. That's much higher than everything else. Let's keep moving on. Standard electric. Okay, that's pretty steady, right around 301, 300. Call it 300. I think you can see here how much higher these EMFs are coming off of this Wi-Fi router. Okay, this one's moving around pretty quick too. I'm seeing everything from 5 up to 9. This one's highly variable. Looks like between 5 and 8 there. Wow, just at first glance, just for reference, everyone, the TLS units were 11 and between 12 and 17. Double and triple what this Wi-Fi router is putting off. Next up is weighted electric. Looks like that's pretty steady around 320, moving up to 325, 317. Looks like 320 is a pretty good average. That's significantly higher than all the other devices. And then our important radio frequency test here at the end. I expect this to be high because this is a Wi-Fi router. And it is high, but not as high as the TLS cube, it looks like. It's like that's moving between, I've seen everything between, there's 9,000, stabilizing there between, oh, now down to 6,000, 7,000, 12,000. Oh, this one's really moving around. Again, this is high, everyone. This is a Wi-Fi router. We expect this to be high. There's 15,000, but then down to 6. Gosh, it's kind of steady between 6 and 9, I would say. And then sometimes it spikes up a little bit. So I think I'm gonna just average that out And there's 6,000, 9,000. I think I'm going to average and just say between 6,000 to 9,000. All right, now everyone, we have some really good data here, and I think it's important we look at the whiteboard and look at everything that we have. All right, everyone, here we have all of our data. We wrote all this down after taking all of our readings. These are going to be in documents and things you can reference, but right now, let's go through it and pick out the high points. First one, standard magnetic, that's measured in milligauss. Here we are, 0.1 for the EES cube, jumping up 10 times that over here to the TLS pyramid, TLS cube, even more. Look at that difference between the EESystem and the TLS cube. And like we would expect, there's the Wi-Fi router coming in super high, down there at 10 to 13. Moving right along to standard electric, that's in volts per meter. We have EES at 3, a little bit higher, the pyramid, a lot higher, the TLS cube, quite a jump, almost 10 times between the EESystem and the TLS cube. But again, like we would expect, there's the Wi-Fi router coming in a lot hotter at 300. Just look at that. 3 from the EESystem, 300 from the Wi-Fi router. Staggering difference. Next, weighted magnetic. The difference between standard and weighted is measuring higher frequencies, everyone. So that's over 60 hertz. That's what we have here. Let's look at how that reads out. 0.3 from the EES system, jumping all the way up to 11 for the pyramid. Whoa, and then 12 to 17 for the TLS cube. But what's important here is, look at this. There's the Wi-Fi router. It's less than half what we're getting over here on the cube, and the substantially less than the pyramid. So here we go. That would be the TLS cube coming in with the highest EMF rating for weighted magnetic. Let's move on to weighted electric. That's also in volts per meter. There's 4 for the EES cube. And then this is staggering. Almost 10 times jump up to 42. And there we go, 37. So a lot more than the EES cube, but not nearly. That is a health risk right there, everyone. 320 from your Wi-Fi router. And then let's see here, last but certainly not least. Now we're on to radio frequency RFs. This is an important one, everyone. These are your Wi-Fi routers. This is 5G. This is your Bluetooth. This is all the things you hear and think about in terms of the RFs that are invading all of our space. Like, these are the things we're trying to protect against that we don't want coming into our brain. So let's look at this very important one. Here we are, RFs for the EES cube, 0.19, or what we were calling when we were taking the reading 190, and that's milliwatts per square meter. So think per square meter, that's if you're within a square meter of this device, that's what we're reading. So 0.190 or 190, and then look at this jump. Look at this jump from 190 to 8,000. 8,000. That's a massive difference. And then this is an even more important one to look at. Jumping up to 17,000 to 18,000 for the TLS cube. Like that 190 to 17 to 18,000, everyone. That's what we're talking about here. Likely because the electronics within the TLS cube are a lot more dense. I would guess that's why, but for right now, what's just important, the numbers. And look at this. That's over twice, or just right around twice what the Wi-Fi routers. You are getting almost twice the radio frequencies from your TLS cube than you're getting next to a Wi-Fi router. Why is that important? You don't want to sleep next to your Wi-Fi router. We all know that. You don't want to work next to your Wi-Fi router. People get headaches. People get slight nausea. People have all sorts of issues and sensitivities next to Wi-Fi routers. And there's your TLS cube, rocking in much, much higher than the Wi-Fi router. I think people should take a look at this. And also, and right here too, your pyramid, that's coming in at the same, slightly higher than the Wi-Fi router. I'm glad we did this, everyone, and I'm really glad we looked at the radio frequency. So to kind of cap it off, of course, the Wi-Fi router was going to come in hot on some of these. We thought it would, we expected that. Did not expect the TLS cube to be so high here, and especially so high in radio frequencies, but also the whole point of this was to compare TLS with the EESystem, and just look, look at how much lower these are, like staggeringly lower. across the board, 0.1 to 1.6. That's 10x right there. 3 to 4, not as much there. 0.3 to 11, huge difference, everyone. 4 to 42, and then this is the one that I really want to highlight, is the RFs. 190 to 8,000. Just staggering. So I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we did the test. Now we're going to start looking at some of the economics. Okay, everyone, we've gone over the EMFs and the radio frequencies testing. Now what I want to do is look at the economic side of this and look at the hardware and what exactly is going on with, I call it the guts. What's inside these products? Let's compare, let's contrast, and let's figure out what the numbers really are. First, let's start over here with the pyramid. This unit here, the pyramid, sells for $13,900.99, so $14,000. And this is what I would call probably the light system's primary product. The raw hardware here, this unit that you're looking at, which is everything except this box, I found this online on Alibaba, a Chinese wholesale site, and it costs $1,200, $1,200 for this hardware. Online, readily available, you can check it out. Now, importantly, the thing that is added to this to make it a TLS or a light system product is this hard drive. I call this the guts. This unit right here, I found this online. I was able to identify this configuration and figure out how much this costs. This is $200, okay? So what we're looking at is a $1,200 unit and a $200 unit. So if we do a little bit of basic math, we know that our pyramid, our wholesale cost, is coming in around $1,400, right? Now let's get into what that really means. Oh yeah, let's also cover what do we know in terms of retail. Retail is $14,000 for the pyramid. Now is where we get into the actual numbers. The markup on that, right there, the percentage markup is what, about 900%? 900% markup at a gross profit margin of 90%. So just think about that for a moment. This is the cost of what TLS looks to be paying for the hardware and the guts. This is what it's being sold to you for, you the consumer. That's a markup of 900% and 90. Let's move on to the cube. Okay, the cube looks to be selling for retail. Well, we can go look online on the Light System website, selling for $6,500. Now here's where it gets interesting. On Alibaba, this unit right here, it costs $600. Okay, so $600 plus our $200, remember, because inside this unit is the Light System guts, or the hard drive, also comes in this one. We only have one. So this is what you can get on Alibaba. This is what comes inside, that's $200. So we know our all-in costs are right around $800. All right, so what is that in terms of markup percentage? Well, that's about 713% markup. Also, about an 89%. We can run these numbers, we can put the math together, I can show you that later, but what I want you to see is just look at the markup here. We're talking about $800 from my research and what I can tell online for the hardware and the guts, the TLS guts, and then he's selling it, and by he I mean Jason Shurka and the TLS team, selling it for $6,500. That is a staggering markup. Okay, but what are you getting for your markup? Now let's look at the system, okay? All right, everyone, I want to talk about something important here when we looked at EMFs and radio frequencies, and that's that these two products, the ones that are off the shelf, or the ones that I found on Alibaba for $1,200 and $600, these two devices, is this concept of the power box, right, or the power supply. And with frequency devices, think your cell phone or an internet, Wi-Fi router, those frequencies are coming from somewhere. And I want you to look at this. When we did the test here, when we did the test with this device, the power supply is very close right here to where we tested it. If you remember, we tested it here on the front. And the readings were very high on this TLS cube. Well, when we did the pyramid over here, you'll see the power supply is way in the back here. So when we were testing here on the front, we still had a bit of a distance, almost 1.5 feet, maybe even 2 feet from where we were testing to the power supply. My guess, which I don't know for sure unless we were to redo the whole test, is that if we did the actual EMF and RF device testing much closer, say, to the power device, it would actually have been higher. So between these two, my concern as looking at this is with the power supply device being off the shelf and no cancellation effect happening, no conjugate wave pairing, no real thoughtful design into terms of how do we cancel the EMFs and the radio frequencies, we're going to keep seeing high results. We're going to keep seeing that these devices are really just, effectively glorified DJ devices or karaoke or something you would see in a nightclub. And that really needs to be thought about because you're not buying a nightclub device. You're buying something that's being marketed and sold as a health product, as a wellness device. And that's something I can see in the design with the EESystem, but it's not something that I see here with the off-the-shelf TLS products. Now, everyone, let's look at the EESystem Cube. This is the product that I have. This is what I bought, and I want you to come take a look at the inside. So come on over. All right, we're now looking inside the EESystem Cube, and the first thing you're going to notice is this is intentful design, everyone. This isn't just something that's off the shelf. So what we have are the 4 EESystem units or hard drives. There's 4 of them, not just one like that we would see in the TLS pyramid, and then we have the power supply. But the very important thing I want you to notice, along with the intentful, well-designed nature of this is a custom milled, made in the USA product and also assembled in the United States. That's very different than what we saw previously with the TLS products. This comes out of Las Vegas. All of these parts come from different vendors, right? So the power supply, that's from a vendor. The boxes, that's from a vendor. The whole side panel, even these are all from different vendors. It's not just off the shelf. What I want to talk about next is why is it designed this way and why that matters as a health device. So take again a look at these 2 different pairs. And in the next part of this video, we're going to talk about a very key term to understand: conjugate wave pair as well as cancellation effect. We're back. We just talked about conjugate wave pair, everyone, and that's something I want to break down because it's a very important concept to consider with what the EESystem is doing relative or versus the TLS system. So let's just do a quick diagram. We saw with the cube from EESystem the 4 boxes. And with these 4 boxes, it's the idea of transmission or energy, frequency, moving in this closed direction, creating what is called a cancellation effect, happening here in the middle. This concept not only works with the EESystem Cube, but also the much larger systems. Think of it this way. We have an array of systems here. We have an array of systems here, here, and here. You could also put them here, 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 and here. All of these are meant to create cancellation effect. That's an important concept to think about and to know about with the EESystem relative to the TLS unit, because with that cancellation effect, that's where this idea or this principle of a scalar wave or a scalar effect originates from. Without this happening, it's hard for something to be a health device. In fact, it's hard for me as an objective observer looking at this to see anything with a TLS unit. How is this design anything other than what you might see on a DJ booth or at a karaoke bar? It's something you can buy on Alibaba, you put in the hard drive, and all of a sudden it's claiming to be the same thing where there is no intentful design, there is no conjugate wave pair, there is no cancellation. And why that's important is think about the test we did earlier, where we were looking at EMFs and radio frequencies. That's why I believe from our test, something like the EESystem is scoring so low in all of that. Those frequencies are being canceled out. That's a part of the design. That's a part of why it was created and is developed and manufactured to look like that. That's very different than with TLS, where none of that exists. So let's go through some of the numbers with the EESystem Cube. I bought mine for $15,000. We know that's the retail cost right here, $15,000. It's a little bit more than the TLS pyramid, not much, 1,000 more. I don't know the cost wholesale for the EESystem Cube, but here's a couple of things I do know. We have 4 monitors, right? Each of those, a couple $100 for the monitors, and then we're going to have the custom milling, the box, all of that. So right there, easily, that's $1,000, $1,200. Maybe it's a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but just right there from a very brief look, and that's not counting, you know, all of the support team that they have. That's not counting their years in development, the assembly, the shipping, all of that. That's not coming just from like something that's off the box. So I think in terms of this that it's going to be substantially higher than the Cube, but for right now, since we don't know, I'm going to just put custom, right? To be determined custom. From that, unfortunately, if we don't know the wholesale cost, you know, we're not going to know the markup. But because we know that this is definitely more, just because we're looking at all of the different vendors and all of the different pieces and the fact that it's assembled and parts are manufactured here, we know that their markup is going to be less. There's just no way around it. And the gross profit is going to be less. Again, we don't know what it is, but I'm just going to put a little less than sign. And it's difficult to map all of this out without me knowing the cost in the wholesale, but it's going to be less. And I think that's an important thing for people to think about. What you're paying for when you get a TLS Cube is something that's, you know, you can look at it here. This is how you buy it off of Alibaba. And then they put in, TLS does, their hard drive, and it's effectively being sold and marketed as the same thing or the same technology, the same health device as an EESystem. And my objective look at this as a parent with a sick child, speaking to other people that are watching this that may have a sick loved one, is it's really important you do your due diligence on something like this. Because what appears to be similar or the same thing is completely different in terms of design, what it's doing, the sort of wave that it's creating, the conjugate wave pairing, the cancellation effect, all of these things that are not seemingly obvious or clear by the way that this device is marketed are happening with this device. And the difference, like we just talked about, between the pyramid and the EES Cube is $1,000. So either way, the profit markup, the gross profit is going to be less over here. And I'm just wondering, like, what are you getting for your money over here? Like, what are you paying for? Because what it looks like you're paying for is something that's off the shelf from Alibaba, as well as, and this is important to think about, all of those EMF frequencies, all of those radio frequencies, those were all a lot higher with this TLS product. We tested them. I'm not saying it was a, you know, high industrial grade precise test. We did our own testing, and I encourage you to do the same too, but it made a lot of sense. Why something off the shelf would have those higher readings than something that is designed and made to cancel those frequencies. After testing these 3 products, everyone, the TLS Pyramid, the TLS Cube, and the EESystem Cube, and seeing how the EMF readings came out for the 2 TLS products and the EESystem Cube, I cannot but come to the conclusion that these 2 products here are effectively LED light devices. This is something that's emitting light much like any LED device, whereas the design and the data and the readouts from the EESystem makes this a health device. And the full story that Mr. Shurka attaches to his 2 products is something that I think every parent or every informed person looking at these products and doing research and taking a look at all the options for a loved one should look at very carefully. And by doing the EMF RF comparison and asking these questions of Mr. Shurka, it's something that I really hope helped you in your research figure out better what's going on. So please, like and subscribe. We're going to have more videos coming out. There's going to be source links, hardware photos, and some of the data that we put up here available to you. And I'm really curious to hear what you have to say and what your experiences have been. So drop your thoughts and experiences below. I read all the comments, and I encourage you to stay curious. Do your own diligence and keep advocating for the people you love. Thanks for watching.